Chapter 15. Nest Building. After another week of rain, the high arch of blue sky appeared again, and the sun which poured down was quite hot. Though there had been no chance to see either the secret garden or Deacon, Mistress Mary had enjoyed herself very much. The week had not seemed long. She had spent several hours of every day with Colin in his room, talking about Rajas or gardens or Deacon and the cottage on the moor. They had looked at the splendid books and pictures, and sometimes Mary had read things to Colin, and sometimes he had read a little to her. When he was amused and interested, she thought he scarcely looked like an invalid at all, except that his face was so colorless, and he was always on the sofa. "You are a sly young one, to listen and get out of your bed and go following things up like you did that night," Miss Medlock said once. "But there's no saying it's not been a sort of blessing to us. He's not had a tantrum or a whining fit since you made friends. The nurse was going to give up the case because she was so sick of him, but she says she doesn't mind staying now that you've gone on duty with her," she said, laughing a little. In her talks with Colin, Mary had tried to be very cautious about the secret garden. There were certain things she wanted to find out from him, but she felt that she must find them out without asking direct questions. In the first place, as she began to like to be with him, she wanted to discover whether he was the kind of boy that you could tell a secret to. He was not in the least like Deacon, but he was evidently so pleased with the idea of a garden that no one knew anything about that she thought perhaps he could be trusted. The second thing she wanted to find out was this: if he could be trusted, if he really could, wouldn't it be possible to take him to the garden without having anyone find out? The grand doctor had said that he must have fresh air, and Colin had said he would not mind fresh air in a secret garden. Perhaps, if he had a great deal of fresh air, and he knew Deacon and the robin, and he saw things growing, he might not think so much about dying. Mary had seen herself in the glass sometimes lately, when she had realized that she looked quite a different creature from the child she had seen when she arrived from India. This child looked nicer. Even Martha had seen a change in her. "The air from the moor's done thee good already," she said. "Thou art nigh so yeller, and thou art nigh so scrawny. Even the hair doesn't slump down on the head so flat. It's got some life in it, so it sticks out a bit." "It's like me," said Mary. "It's growing stronger and fatter. I'm sure there's more of it." "It looks it for sure," said Martha, roughing it up a little around her face. "Thou art not half so ugly when it's like that, and there's a bit of red in the cheeks." If the gardens and fresh air had been good for her, perhaps they would be good for Colin. But then, if he hated people to look at him, perhaps he would not like to see Deacon. "Why does it make you angry when you are looked at?" she inquired one day. "I've always hated it," he answered, "even when I was very little. Then, when they took me to a seaside, I used to lie in my carriage, and everybody used to stare, and ladies would stop and talk to my nurse, and they would begin to whisper, and I knew what they were saying. They were saying that I shouldn't live to grow up. And then sometimes the lady would pat my cheeks and say, 'Poor child.' Once, when a lady did that, I screamed out loud, and I bit her hand. She was so frightened she ran away." "She had thought you'd gone mad like a dog," said Mary, not at all admiringly. "I don't care what she thought," said Colin, frowning. "I wonder why you didn't scream and bite me when I came into your room," said Mary, and then she began to smile slowly. "Well, I thought you were a ghost or a dream," he said. "You can't bite a ghost or a dream, and if you scream, they don't care." "Would you hate it if a boy looked at you?" Mary asked uncertainly. He lay back on his cushions, and he paused thoughtfully. "There's one boy," he said quite slowly, as if he were thinking over every word. "There's one boy I believe I shouldn't mind. It's that boy who knows where the foxes live, Deacon." "I'm sure you wouldn't mind him," said Mary. The birds don't, and other animals," he said, still thinking it over. "Perhaps that's why I shouldn't. He's sort of an animal charmer, and I'm a boy animal." Then he laughed, and she laughed too. In fact, it ended in their both laughing a great deal and finding the idea of a boy animal hiding in his hole very funny indeed. What Mary felt afterward was that she need not fear about Deacon. On that first morning, when the sky was blue again, Mary wakened very early. The sun was pouring in slanting rays through the blinds, and there was something so joyous in the sight of it that she jumped out of bed and ran to the window. She drew up the blinds and opened the window itself, and a great waft of fresh, scented air blew in upon her. The moor was blue, and the whole world looked as if something magic had happened to it. There were tender little fluting sounds here and there and everywhere, as if scores of birds were beginning to tune up for a concert. Mary put her hand out of the window and held it into the sun. It's warm, she said. "It will make the green points push up and up and up, and it will make the bulbs and roots work and struggle with all their might down in the earth." She kneeled down and she leaned out of the window as far as she could, breathing big breaths and sniffing the air until she laughed because she remembered what Deacon's mother had said about the end of his nose quivering like a rabbit's. "It must be very early," she said. "The little clouds are all pink, and I've never seen the sky look quite like this. No one is up. I don't even hear the stable boys." A sudden thought made her scramble to her feet. "I can't wait. I'm going to the garden." She had learned to dress herself by this time, and she put on her clothes in 5 minutes. She knew a small side door which she could unbolt herself, and she flew downstairs in her stocking feet and put on her shoes in the hall. She unchained and unbolted and unlocked, and when the door was open, she sprang across the step with one bound. And there she was, standing on the grass, which seemed to have turned green. And with the sun pouring down on her, and warm, sweet wafts about her, and the fluting and twittering and singing coming from every bush and tree, she clasped her hands for pure joy and looked up in the sky, and it was so blue and pink and pearly and white and flooded with springtime light that she felt as if she must flute and sing aloud herself, and knew that the thrushes and robins and skylarks could not possibly help it. She ran around the shrubs and the paths towards the secret garden. "It is all different already," she said. "The grass is so greener, and things are sticking up everywhere, and things are uncurling, and green buds and leaves are showing. This afternoon, I am sure Deacon will come."